Welcome to the program. We begin tonight with Joe D'Alessandro, who's the new executive director of the San Francisco Visitors and Convention Bureau. And you came from Portland.
That's correct.
And your position there at Portland was pretty much the same, CEO of the Conventions Bureau there.
That's correct.
I have, I remember the first time I walked into the International Airport building, the new one that was built. I remember the very first time, and I looked up at it. It's so high. And that's when you realize how powerful the tourist industry is. You can just feel how that architecture captures something was going on when they built that building.
That's absolutely true.
Isn't it true?
That airport is beautiful, and it kind of really sets the tone for international visitors coming into San Francisco and getting ready to experience what the city has to offer.
It means business.
It absolutely does.
And it does. It's not just a quaint town like Venice, but it's big business.
Visitors last year in San Francisco spent over $6 billion in our economy. $6 billion, making travel and tourism the largest industry that San Francisco has. It really does propel our economy going forward.
It also produces a lot of hotel tax, but you don't get a lot of it back.
No, unfortunately, we don't. We have a very small budget to work with to promote San Francisco, especially compared to our competition out there. And it's one of the things I think that we have to work harder for, because the travel and tourism marketplace is very competitive today.
You're not from the comments you've made in the Business Times and elsewhere, you're not afraid to make that point, which is, and a lot of people presume, especially the Board of Supervisors, that it's a golden goose. There's no Fisherman's Wharf, there's no Golden Gate Bridge, there's no bay, and that's true. It is that beautiful. But it's much like, I say, it's much like a woman who's won the Miss USA contest. You can ride that for only a certain amount of time. And then all of a sudden, things start to become, like Fisherman's Wharf. It's gone through some changes. Right now it seems to be okay, but there's times where it is very dirty and junky. How competitive, how much competition is San Francisco facing? How much danger is there we're gonna see other cities taking our conventions and even our visitors away?
You know, there's a great danger about that, and I'm very fearful that San Francisco and San Franciscans themselves have become somewhat complacent about the tourism industry and figuring people love this city, they're always going to want to come here, and we don't really need to do anything to market it. And that's simply not the case. Travel and tourism is becoming a significant economic generator around the world right now, and every city and every state and every country is aggressively going after the visitor. Today a visitor can choose to go anywhere, basically. So it's no longer San Francisco is the one place they want to go to. They can go to San Francisco, they can go to Paris, they could go to Chicago, they can go to San Diego, they can go to Seattle, they can go to a lot of different places. We have to continue to market aggressively to convince them that San Francisco is the preferred destination. And if you look at any consumer product, consumers are fickle. Whether you're the most well-known brands in the world like a Nike or a Coca-Cola or a Disney, they're constantly advertising, they're constantly marketing, because they realize if they're not always presenting their product in front of consumer, they'll forget, they'll think something else, and they'll go somewhere else and buy some other product. We as a city have that same responsibility to make sure that we're aggressively competing with our competition and making sure that San Francisco continues to capture the audience and receive the economic benefit of that.
What do you think? Let's go up and just down the coast. San Diego is a beautiful city, has a beautiful bay, and they're doing quite well, aren't they? They're doing better than we are.
They are. San Francisco has a bigger visitor industry today.
San Diego
has a bigger visitor industry today than San Francisco does. Their convention center is doing very well. They've really focused on tourism as kind of an economic generator to help resolve some of the issues they had with the turn down of the military presence there. And the fact of the matter is they've invested a lot in the tourism industry. They have a convention center on the waterfront next to Old Town, close to downtown, a lot of hotel product, a baseball park right by it, and have really focused on making sure that San Diego, Horton Plaza is right next door, making sure that San Diego is clean and an affordable destination and an attractive destination for visitors. Today, their visitor industry has surpassed San Francisco's in terms of spending.
Tell me about Portland.
Portland is another city that is really growing. The spending by visitors is growing at a much faster rate than it has been growing here in San Francisco. Again, the city is really focused on building an arena right next to the convention center. In fact, they have 2 arenas right next to the convention center. Free public transportation downtown, so you can get on any bus, you can get in on any light rail system for free in the central core. You can go to hotels, you can go to the convention center, you can go to the main shopping area, and really clean the streets, making sure that the streets are safe and that they're clean of debris. It makes it a very attractive package.
Let me ask you this: of the whole industry, what percent are convention visitors, and how many are tourists, strict tourists?
About 40% of the industry are strict tourists in San Francisco, and about 35%, 36% are convention delegates and people here for a meeting. So, and the rest are a combination of business travel or people visiting friends and relatives or whatever.
And regional?
And regional. And the fact of the matter is that's a very good mix. You don't want to have all your eggs in one basket and be a total tourism destination or a total meeting destination. It's really nice to have a mix of visitors because that way if one year the meeting business is down, you still have the tourism business to make
and
up
in
for
San
that.
Diego and San Diego and Portland, for example, what percent are they? Do they break down pretty much the same way?
San Diego breaks down pretty similar. Portland probably has a slightly larger percentage of people there for meetings and conventions.
Okay, so now you come back to San Francisco. What do you make of the fact that Condé Nast, other travel magazines constantly rate us as the #1 destination? What do you make of that when people say you don't have to worry, Joe, everything's fine?
Well, the fact of the matter is that we are a very attractive destination. There's no question about it. However, we are dropping in our market share.
In the tourism, we're still very good, aren't we?
In the tourism, we're still very good.
But the conventions are getting larger and larger.
Right.
We have how many square feet in the Moscone area?
We have, you count the square feet in a variety of areas, but we have over 1 million square feet in Moscone that we could use for conventions. We opened Moscone West just a couple of years ago, and we're already at capacity, and we're already losing business because other cities have expanded their convention center to a larger degree. The other problem we have with Moscone, although people love it and they love coming to San Francisco, it's in 3 different buildings: Moscone North, Moscone South, Moscone West. So if people are at a convention that takes all 3 buildings, you have to go outside to go to a building, you have to cross the street, you have to go underground. Whereas many cities like San Diego, it's all one big, large building together.
And you take a look at the Convention Center in Las Vegas, 1.9 million square feet. The total square footage is 9.3 million square feet, 133,000 rooms. How many rooms do we have?
We have about 32,000 rooms.
And we've just seen a major biotech convention that began here many years ago can't come here. They're in Chicago.
That's correct.
They even bypassed Boston and other key biotech centers. And aren't we seeing more of these mega conventions appearing, like in the computer electronics area?
Absolutely. The convention business is growing dramatically, and we've seen
for these big, huge conventions.
Right. We've seen some of our largest conventions. For example, last October we had Oracle here in town, and Oracle's been with us and been growing every year dramatically. Last year, in order to keep Oracle in San Francisco, because other cities want Oracle to move
I'll bet
to
you
them,
they do.
We had to work with them to close Howard Street between 3rd and 4th so that they could tenant and make an expansion of Moscone across the street
now,
to feed people.
Is that the one where the neighbors didn't particularly, or people complained about that?
In the very beginning, yes, but Oracle did a great job of rerouting traffic, and frankly, my office is right across the street, and during that convention, traffic flowed better than it did today.
How long do you think Oracle's going to be able to stay in this venue?
We're going to do everything we possibly can to keep them here, but if they continue to grow at the rate that they do, there's a real threat if we don't do something about finding a way to expand Moscone.
Okay, the 2 areas I want to talk about. One is a pet peeve of mine, and you mentioned it twice, and that is the cleanliness of the streets, our notoriety for our homeless problem, which has not been solved. In fact, the worst of that population, the chronic homeless, are the people who are still left on the streets. Those who were, I call them homeless light. They were people in trouble but could get back on their feet, have been helped by Care Not Cash. But the chronically homeless, I just saw as I came here to the studio, a gentleman who is on a freight platform, wheeled freight platform. He's asleep with all his goods. He's at the corner of Harrison and the major on-ramp to the freeway. He is on the corner, in the street. In other words, these are people who need help, and they're all over. They're the ones, unfortunately, that are not being brought into the system. That does not help our convention and visitors' attractiveness, would you think?
No, of course not. People, visitors, when they come from another community, they care about people on the streets. And if they see people that need help, they care about that. They also care about their safety. And for some people who are not residents in a community, they don't know which parts of town are safe and which parts of town are not safe. So I think the safety is the #1 issue that we have to deal with. And the street situation is manyfold. I mean, there are people on the street that do bad things, and those people are criminals, and they should be taken away. And have appropriate justice done. However, the homeless and those in need, we have a societal obligation to help them, and I think that needs to continue to be a focus of our community.
And I appreciate that, but I'm going to ask you to unfortunately wear the other hat, and that is, you've mentioned on your own twice, like in Portland and San Diego, that they go out of their way to have clean streets, and streets where tourists are not harassed, and they're often harassed by the panhandlers and so on. That's hurting us, isn't it? I mean, speaking only as the director of the Convention Bureau.
Yeah, I think it does. I think it hurts us when people, again, I have to stress, we know, the street situation here in San Francisco. If you're from Wichita and you're coming here for a convention, you don't know what the street situation is. You don't know if people are just homeless or if people are more aggressive. You're unsure because you don't know the situation. That makes for some people to be intimidated by the street situation. Does
it hurt our city? Has it in any way, in your opinion, hurt our city as we compete with other cities that say you won't have that problem? They do it behind the scenes when they come to you. They have these concessions, right? Yeah. And they probe whether they should come to your city, and you have to sell it.
Right, absolutely it does. And people mention that about San Francisco all the time, about the street scene. And it's not only the homeless on the street, but it's the cleanliness of our streets. I noticed driving around San Francisco, many times there's trash, there's newspapers that have fallen out of the free newspaper collection things on the streets, and that does not make for a pretty street scene for residents or for visitors alike. And a lot of cities have kind of come up with ways to address that cleanliness on the streets situation, and hopefully San Francisco can find a way to adopt those policies too.
The other problem is the square footage problem. Moscone, or that area, is it fully developed now where we cannot conceive of another expansion of Moscone?
I think we're going to have to find a way. It's fully developed around that area, and if you look at what Moscone has done to South of Market, for those of you that have been around the city for a long time, and remember what South of Market was like before Moscone went there and what South of Market is like today, it's really a marvel.
Absolutely, but the property that now surrounds Moscone are newer developments in the museum and so on. Where do you go, and where does San Francisco go to be able to move into the mega convention world of the future? Where do you go?
I think we have to be creative at looking about how we can do that. For example, Moscone North and South has Howard Street going through it. If you look at the Seattle Convention Center built right over I-5. And so the I-5 goes under the Seattle Convention Center.
How many square feet would that give us?
I don't know, but it would certainly make the whole Moscone complex much better, because you can go underground and you can go above ground and really expand that. So there are creative ways of doing that. They're expensive, but there are ways to resolve the tight space problem.
Well, I think that we're fortunate to have you. Thank you for coming down from Portland. And
I'm a native Californian.
And a native Californian.
So I'm coming back home.
Good. All right. Well, we'll have you back. And
Thank you.
For periodic reports on the condition of our tourist industry.
Great. Thank you very much for asking me.
And stay tuned. We'll be right back.